this is my friend Janeen house, and we've known each other for a long time. And she has adapted her homeschooling and home education and mentoring in a really interesting way. And I was really excited to talk to her before she moves to Utah. Although I could still catch her when she moves to Utah. But anyway, we're gonna catch her before she leaves. When is your actual launch date? Do you know? Or are you just kind of hanging out until you find a place?
I'm just hanging out until I find a place.
Yeah, it's gonna be a challenge
Yeah.
right now. All right. So I just want you to tell me your story. How did how did this all begin for you?
Well, I feel like I came into homeschooling quite late in the game, so to speak. I really only homeschooled one of my children. But when my oldest was in second grade, it started to become clear to me that his capabilities were going to be limited in the public education system. And this is when my oldest was in second grade. And
Mhm.
I didn't start homeschooling until my fourth child.
Right.
So I
So,
started to get these impressions, of needing to do this and moving towards this way. But I think fear was a huge factor in my inability to be able to move forward with these impressions. It just seemed way too overwhelming to me. I had two younger children at the time, and I was feeling very consumed by this idea of homeschooling. I was feeling like my own personal well-being would be compromised, in homeschooling. And I think there were a lot of fears around not teaching them the things that they needed to to be taught in order for them to provide for their families one day. And they wouldn't be able to get into college. There were a lot of social fears, and that seems to be a real criticism of homeschoolers, that these homeschooled children will become socially inept, they can't adapt, those type of things. So these were the fears that were coming up with me in the beginning stages.
so just I want to back up because your boys and Callie's the same way, I'm sure. They're like genius smart. I mean, your oldest kids got perfect scores or something on the ACTs.
No, not quite perfect, but they
Oh,
did score they did
yeah,
score high, and they were very gifted academically.
yeah,
And so that's kind of why I was feeling a little
yeah. Oh, I can
inadequate,
only
you
imagine.
know?
Yeah, I can only imagine when you're already recognizing in second grade that, whoa, this kid's going really fast, and really, really obviously you're thinking in no time at all they're going to be beyond me.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
No,
Yeah, I
I
get that.
remember going to a talented and gifted conference some years later and coming to the realization and just feeling very overwhelmed that I was totally inequipped as a parent to at least feeling that way
At the time.
of being able to kind of reach their full potential, like it was somehow my responsibility for them to reach their full potential, and just kind
That's
of
right.
crying. I mean, these are the thoughts,
Yeah.
this is the adversary coming in and kind of taking hold of my fears. And I remember crying at that conference and just realizing I just don't have the capabilities to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Not realizing that I had a partner, you know, I have God as my partner. And it's not my responsibility for them to reach their, for them to reach their full potential. It's their responsibility to
Right.
do.
Okay, you're jumping ahead though. Let's go through the story.
Okay. So I have three boys, three sons and a daughter. And we started getting kind of integrated into the public education system. We started the more time I didn't make a decision about this, the decision was kind of being made for us.
Mhm.
And we became involved in the school system, in PTA, in the after school activities, and volunteering in the classroom. And this just continued into middle school and high school with my oldest son. And it was becoming harder to figure out how to disengage from it. And I remember, he was he was involved in leadership, and he was like the ASB president. And so, like, how do you remove a child from the system when they are already involved? And it was hard to know kind of how to work through these feelings, because long before I had these feelings of I really need to homeschool my children. And anyway, it became harder to disengage from that system. And I started looking around for a little bit different program for the next two sons, and thinking that, okay, I don't want to completely disengage from like, that would probably traumatize them if we completely disengaged from it at this point in time. But I started looking around for other alternatives and found a charter school that I decided to enroll them in. And that was slightly better because I felt like it aligned a little more with my educational values. And it was smaller in nature. And but still, it was a struggle for them. At least the first year, they'll admit and say, like, I was traumatized by what you did, Mom. But then now, years later, they're like, that was a really good choice. That was the best thing for me. Like, that worked out okay for us, for me.
Right.
And so I at the time, I just had a lot of anxiety about it in making that switch over to the charter school. But in the end, for our family at the time, because I didn't move on these promptings of homeschooling my children right when I needed to, just felt like that was the next best choice for us.
So,
Well,
so right here, I want to make the comment, Janine, that we tend to beat ourselves up. I mean, I had been prompted. My oldest son Drew had a really bad experience in third grade, and I had to take him out for half a year. And I did try to do school at home with him, not homeschooling, but school at home, where sit down. I got the workbooks and everything from the school, and I had, he had to sit there and do them, and it was a nightmare. And so that was my first taste of it. And of course, I was never going to do that again. And I'd had these promptings for a long time, like you, to do homeschooling with my kids, but I was in the middle of having babies, and I did not have good pregnancies. It was just not going to happen.
yeah.
And finally, when I finally did it, I was still having a pregnancy with my last. I had 5 children at that point, and I still tried to do school at home that first year. So we tend to beat ourselves up, like, why didn't I get better prepared? Why didn't I overcome my fears? Why didn't I pray my way through it? Why didn't I do this and that? But I think the Lord gives us it. Your boys have all turned out amazing, amazing. I know all of them, and they're sharp. They're on their way. They're maybe all those years the Lord knew you just needed a lot of time to work through this so that you could do Callie. Because talk about, I mean, I wish I could get one of my boys to marry her. She's amazing too. So I think, don't beat yourself up over that, because, he knows that we sometimes need time to just work through stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll been better, maybe it wouldn't have, I don't know,
Right.
but
I don't know. This is
just
just the
right
way
where
it
you need
worked
to
out.
be, right? You're right where you need to be.
Yeah.
So go ahead, keep
Yeah.
talking.
Well, so my boys started middle school at this charter school, and I still had a young one at home, Callie, as you've mentioned. And I put her in the charter school for 1 year, and just and during this time, she started piano lessons with someone who had homeschooled and was a homeschooling advocate.
Oh, who was that?
For all the families that she taught piano lessons to. So her name is Lindy Coe, and she teaches the Suzuki method in Corbett.
Okay.
And she had a little kind of advertisement for this Oregon Christian homeschooling conference called the Ocean Network. And that was something I thought, I'm going to go to this conference, just check it out. And that was my only intention for really going, just because I had these impressions all these years. And I thought, well, maybe now's the time, at least with Callie. Maybe she's the one that I need to homeschool. And so I went and checked it out. And the first thing I noticed at this conference was there was a lot of people, a ton of people. And I thought, these are not the people that are in public school. I mean, I'm judging just their outward appearance, but these families are not the families in public school. This is where all the families are that you would expect to, be in public education, but they're not. Just there were lots of big families. I mean, we're talking, I have 4 children. I don't really consider that a big family. I mean, maybe by the standards of the world it is, but we're talking 6, 7, 8, 9 kids.
Like, how do they do that?
Yes. So I became very curious at this conference as to how they are able to do it with families, literally large families. And thinking, okay, if they can do it with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, whatever kids they've got, I can do it with 1. I'm a capable person. I can do it with 1.
Yes, you are a capable person.
So, I went to that conference year after year and just started learning. But I did the next year, after Callie started that charter school, I did pull her from the charter school and said, we're going to do it. This is what we're going to do. And there was even some selfishness on my part for doing this, in that I was done running kids around to school to pick them up, to drop them off, to do this, to do that, to the other. I was done kind of being the school taxi driver. And my boys were old enough, they were getting to the point where they could drive, to and from school. And I wasn't going to have to worry about that. But one of the things that really impressed me at this homeschooling conference is that they had a homeschool high school graduation there, a ceremony of sorts. And I sat in on this event and I was just moved. I was flabbergasted at all that they had accomplished during their years of school. And, they're kind of doing spotlights on these homeschooling students, and just feeling just marveled at what they had been able to accomplish during this time in their homeschool education. And literally homeschooling, like, it literally started opening up to me, like what the world of homeschooling entailed and could entail. That the box of education just started
yeah, now you start seeing where the public education is just such this little tiny world, and it's the homeschooling. That's
Yeah.
the huge opportunity
Yep.
for all kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So it gave me courage. It gave me confidence to be able to move forward in this decision. And I still kept my sons in the charter school because I felt like, that was the best place for them at this point
Mhm.
in their education. And I started, and I guess you could say it was kind of an experiment. She was my
It
guinea
always is.
pig
Yeah. Yeah.
to speak on what this looked like for our family and for her in particular. But I I realized at that homeschooling conference that I did not have to mimic the public education system. In fact, it would be best not to. And it would be best to engage in a curriculum for her that suits her and what she's interested in. Because, I started looking at the things, how I learned as an individual and as a human being, and really felt like the things that I really learn in my heart are things I'm interested in and
Right.
have a desire to learn about. And so her curriculum was really set around the things that she wanted to learn about and to grow. And we talked a lot about, you know, the practical skills that perhaps she needed in life. And I started reflecting on the things that I had learned in life and hadn't learned in life. And, what would have been helpful to me at that point in time, to become an adult. What kind of skills do I need? And so many of the skills of just living our lives are lost because we get too busy doing kind of the unimportant things. And
So
so
true.
we really focused on, what it was, what she needed in her life to become an adult. I mean, some of these students are left without like just life skills.
How to balance a checkbook,
Yes, yes,
how to measure a rug. I mean,
yes.
I know they take geometry,
Buy a
but it
car.
doesn't translate,
Yeah,
right? Just
right,
how to make a meal, how to do
right.
your laundry, how to change the oil.
Yep. How to
Just
take care of our
practical.
bodies. Yep.
But even more, it's they're so mired in the social aspect that they really don't learn who they are
Right.
first, what they really like. They're so driven by what everybody else is doing and trying to fit in and trying to find your niche that they can't just learn to be themselves first,
Yeah. So true. Yeah. I
which
really,
is really translates into emotional resilience,
yes,
right?
yes. And there are so, like what I have taught her, um, or what we have focused on comes not only with what she desires, but also kind of what our family circumstances are going through, what we're learning as a family and what we're kind of going through. And I love that you bring up that emotional resiliency because it is so important in today's world to be able to have that. And that really is lost in the public education system. It's not even existent, I don't think, in the public education system.
Well, it can't be, right. It's not something, and the biggest one of the biggest issues with that is that because they're gone so much during the day, and then like
Yes.
the rest of the day they're hiding within their friendships and in their activities and in their homework, that you don't ever just get a chance to dig down into your family and deal with stuff.
Yeah, so true. And that was one of the reasons that I decided to homeschool Callie was I came to a realization exactly that I was not having enough time as a parent to teach my children and to build a relationship with them. And that was scaring me. And so that is something that I really regret as a parent, is not having this time with my sons to be able to kind of dig in to a relationship with them. Like I was fighting the time, because they would go to school, they would be at
Yeah.
school, you know, for a long period of time. Then they would have after school activities. We would try to sit down together as a family and have dinner together, but then they were off to the next thing, you know,
Or homework.
piano lessons, homework until 1 in the morning, you know. I mean, just the time spent was just ridiculous, and I just didn't
Right.
feel I could parent. So
Yeah.
I I was in the,
I get it. I mean,
yeah,
and I've told this, to other people that I've talked to, but when my oldest son was going into 8th grade, when I said, okay, when I finally gave in to those impressions, and we had this wonderful summer together, and I can remember where I was sitting, and we were getting ready for vacation to go back east to see John's family. And it was this moment when everybody was, going around and trying to get everything ready. And I sat there at the table watching everybody excitedly getting ready. And I thought, this has just been the most wonderful summer of our family's life. And the voice came into my head, it doesn't have to end.
yes,
We
yeah,
can continue to have every day be where we're together and we're doing fun things. And sure, we're going to have to do some, schooling stuff, but it doesn't have to end. You can have this time.
yeah,
And the minute I made that decision, it was just like this weight was lifted off my shoulders.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, I don't have to. I mean, and now when you go to those other activities like the soccer or whatever you're doing, or the piano lessons, it's not in this mad dash all the time.
right,
You're doing it, you know, after you've had all this time together in
right,
during the day. And so it's fine,
yeah,
and you can do a whole bunch of activities and not feel like it's robbing you of these moments you want to sit down and have a conversation, you
exactly.
know? So yeah, that's what I found too. It was just wonderful in the first year was a big wash, because I laid on the couch and tried not to throw up for most of that year. I was just like, hey, guys, go do your math. Go do something. I can't do you right now.
Right.
But oh well, it's okay. It washed out.
Yeah. And I
Anyway.
really felt like I was spending twice as much energy countering what was being taught in the schools, either, you know, from a moral standpoint, or just, you know, another side of something. And I was, I did not want my children to continue to be raised by their peers. I wanted them to be mentored by somebody who had a little more life experience. I'm not saying that I, you know, am the epitome
No, but
of,
nobody loves your
of
children the way,
whatever.
yeah, no
No,
teacher is ever going to love your
exactly.
children. Nobody.
Exactly. So,
Mhm.
you know, in addition to there being frustrations with the curriculum and the moral atmosphere of the public school, you're right. Exactly right. Like, no one will have our children's back more than me. Um, so yeah, that was so once I went to this homeschooling conference, and my world started opening up to the possibilities of homeschooling, like I became excited about it. And yet there was also a regret that I hadn't started this earlier. And you know, I have to have some self-compassion for myself, and that's just where I was at the time, and that's
Mhm.
okay. But now I know better, and now I you know, try to take time to focus my energies on that relationship, now that they're, you know, they're kind of on their own now, or you know, learning to be on their own.
Yeah. So, and just for the record, I think, my homeschooling experience with my girls was different than with my boys.
Yeah,
I mean, I have to say, my Maddie just completely and fully embraced that relationship with me.
Yeah.
And my boys, not as much. They just, you have this interesting relationship with your boys because they love you, of course, and they respect you, but they want to be independent. They want to have that space. Boys just do, most boys. So I don't have this. It was a different relationship, a different experience with them. I
Yeah.
think if I hadn't had the homeschooling, I might not have any relationship with them. Really honestly believe that. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have anything with them because they're so independent. My boys.
Yeah.
They're great, but they're really their own men. So
And one thing I noticed with one of the ones is when we didn't spend time together, our relationship really suffered. Like there was a period of readjustment that needed to happen and does continue to still happen, which is a little bit different than my other two sons, just because of the relationship that we have and have had, and the injuries that have occurred as we parented, and that we just need more time together
yeah.
to kind of get things going again. And once we spend that time together, but I didn't have this with him during high school, and I just felt like we were fighting it all the time.
Yeah.
Well, the charter school ended up dismantling his senior year, my third son's senior year, um, which was like very traumatizing to him because he wanted to graduate from high school. Like that was a big thing for him. And I just said, well, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm not going to put you into public school. Like you're not going to finish high school. Like I'm not, if you want to engage in that, go for it. But I'm not going to figure out. I did start kind of looking at, what it would take to get him back into our school district. And once I started looking into it, I just like, I'm not doing that. You're spending it at home, and look at the world you have. We can travel, we can do anything you want to learn. You can do orchestra, you can do whatever you want. And he chose to stay at home and continue to do things at Gresham High School. He engaged in the choir program and the band program at Gresham. But he had already taken the ACT. He was already on his way to getting into college. Like acceptance into college was not going to be an issue for him at all. And so I wasn't worried about him actually getting a high school diploma. But it's still, I think it's still maybe a little bit of a sore point for him, even though it has not prohibited him from doing anything that he has wanted to do in his life. There's still a little bit of a grudge, I think, that he has towards that. He'll say that he doesn't. He'll say this tongue in cheek that he's not a high school graduate, but I think there's still an injury there for him. Like even though it's not prohibited him from doing it, because I knew that wasn't going to change anything. Like having that diploma of being graduating from high school wasn't going to change anything for him.
Right.
Not one thing. And I think we're
Yeah.
so brainwashed that, you're not going to be able to get into college if you don't have anything but a public education diploma. That homeschoolers are welcome into college. And I must say that I was a little, at the time Callie got to be a sophomore, I was feeling a little bit of anxiety, like a little bit of panic as to what her
Hmm.
future was. That perhaps I did screw up her life, that she wasn't going to be able to get into college. And I remember calling you and having a conversation, about this. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, how did your kids do it? How did this road happen? Because I was starting to get really nervous. Like, what have I done? I've I've completely destroyed her future. And we're so brainwashed to think that there's just one way to do it, and that college determines our success. And after we talked through with the counselors in college and kind of assessed from, with her what she wanted to do in the future, so that we didn't limit her what limit what she wanted to do. I calmed down and I realized, okay, everything's going to be okay. She decided that she wanted to enroll in Mount Hood, a community college, because if you're going to go into some type of formal education, you have to kind of be adapted. That there's some things that you need to be aware of and you need
Yeah.
to learn. There is a different system of learning when you kind of go into these institutions, and you have to be prepared for that. And so in order to kind of adapt her and get her prepared for what she wanted to do in the future, she decided to enroll in the community college and then apply as a transfer student to the university that she wants to go to. And we also, in the curriculum, we also kind of wanted to, I felt like it would be a good idea to kind of focus on things that allowed her to stand out from all the other applicants. And we did a lot of traveling, which I think that you can learn a lot in traveling. And if we had done that as a family, I think oh man, the memories we would have been able to
Yeah.
create together. I mean, just regret, regret, regret. But we did a lot of learning outside of our home too. But she's a huge reader, so there was a lot of reading that she did on her own, and she loves it. But anyway, that was kind of our story in a nutshell, so to speak.
That's a
And
great story. And Janine, my boys, I'll confess, this last year, two of my boys have said, one of them said they felt like homeschooling did affect their social life. And this is the one that has more friends than all of the other kids combined and a wider variety of friends. I mean, he was friends with band kids, he was friends with kids that were really on the fringes socially. He was friends with athletes, he was friends with very smart kids. He just had, and church kids, just a wide variety of the theater kids, and is still just got this wide variety of friends. And he's, oh, I think homeschooling made it really harder for me to integrate socially. I'm looking at him like, okay, I don't even know how to respond to that. And the other one told me he thought that because I didn't make him do things academically, because I didn't sit down with a whip and make him do it, that it put him behind in his career. And all I could do is look at him and say, son, I couldn't make you brush your teeth. I couldn't make you do anything. I mean, growing up, there was nothing that you would do that I wanted you to do. You had to do the opposite and fight about everything. So I'm sorry, I just wasn't going to make you learn. And you're just fine. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
So, we think we scar our kids,
And we do.
whatever,
We do.
whatever we
Scar
do.
them.
Everybody gets scarred. Yeah,
That's
everybody
right.
gets scarred.
Our parents scar us. We scar our children. It's
Yeah,
just
deal with it. Deal
it
with it.
well,
You're going to,
it's life, because
it's life.
the purpose of that scarring is to be able to come to Christ so that he can heal our scars, no matter
Ta-da.
who injures us.
Right,
That's the
right.
plan.
That is the plan. And who was I talking to the other day? I was having a deep discussion with somebody, and I was saying, I felt during these years, one of the things I miss about being an empty nester is feeling like I always had this direct line, like I had a direct line, and I could ask and I would get answers. And I got lots of answers, and we solved lots of problems, and we just worked through tons of things, And then my son comes out as gay at 26. And I never really questioned Heavenly Father and saying, you could have, I had this line and you could have let me know a long time ago. To some people it was more obvious. To others, I was like, yeah, it could be. I prayed about it. I never got an answer until he came out. And I'm pretty sure I scarred him. I'm
Oh,
pretty
when
sure
he
I
came
did.
out,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I said a lot of things
we all
during that
do.
time that were really hurtful. And simply because of our theology,
Yeah.
not because I was bashing homosexuals or anything, but just because. And so he reveals to us what he needs us to know. And I walked away from that.
Yes.
I've walked away from that experience going, I wasn't supposed to know, because I know I would have been told if I had needed to know that for whatever reason. It was
Yeah.
part of his trial.
Yeah.
So, gosh, it's true, and we just can't get away from it. It's not going to happen. Nobody's a perfect parent. There's no such thing.
And we
So,
are really on our own journey. Your son is on his own journey.
yeah.
You are on your own journey. You are learning things from him. He is learning things from you.
Mhm.
And
And we just accept those lessons,
we
and we
do.
try to learn from them. So you have traveled really widely with Callie. I know you guys went to Greenland
We
and
not Greenland. We went to Iceland.
Iceland. Okay,
And
sorry.
after her kind of studies of World War II, and in particular, she did a lot of studies around Anne Frank. We went to Amsterdam and did a
Cool.
lot of, we're seeing now the sites that some of the sites that she has studied, and that was a great experience
Oh,
for
yeah.
our family. And then we did Iceland on the way home. There's lots of geology stuff in Iceland. We've done Yellowstone. We actually went with a geologist who
Oh,
teaches
wow.
geology from a creation aspect. And we did a tour
Oh,
with him and several other families. And that was really interesting to do, because he was teaching us things from a biblical viewpoint, that we don't often get with,
wow.
even in public education. Even in at BYU,
Yeah,
geology is not
of course
taught
not. Yeah,
often from a biblical standpoint. So
right.
um, that was really a fun experience for us to do. We went to London and we did church history. We found someone who took us on a tour of all the church history sites in northern England, where
Wow.
it all began when the saints
Yeah,
came over from
yeah.
England. And so he took us on some of the area sites, took us to, where the elders were staying at the time the missionaries were staying at the time where they were being invaded by evil spirits. They were being consumed
Oh, cool.
spirits.
Yeah.
And so it was just there are things like that you just can't do when you are involved in the public education system. So those are just a few of the fun things that we did. But once Callie started getting into the curriculum of the community college, it kind of dampened our ability to be able to
Yeah.
move around like we wanted to. But I just think, oh, I would have traveled the whole USA in a little
Right.
RV. That would have been a dream of mine. And had we not decided to go to the community college, that's probably what we would have done.
Yeah.
That those last couple of years is just continue to learn on the road, because there's just, learning is lifelong, and I just feel it's really important for us to teach our children how to learn, not so much what to learn. That's
Yeah.
between them and God and the Spirit, and how to think, how to reason, how to think logically, how to be creative, how to be emotionally intelligent, like you had mentioned earlier, which I don't feel I taught my boys. I'm a little worried about that. How to be financially responsible. That was something you had mentioned earlier, how to sustain our bodies, how to be just self-reliant in general.
Yeah.
And when we're just kind of put into a box in public education that really limits our ability to be able to do that. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about my story. And
yeah. One last thing, and then I'll let you go. One of the things I learned very early on, and I wanted to get your take on this, is that, like you said, it wasn't up to me to determine my children's education, which was a big light bulb, because you feel, and I think most religious orientations, you as a parent, and especially as a mother, you feel like that weight is on your shoulder, that you're Atlas, that you have this responsibility, you need to get this direction. And I had to really, I assume you've read Thomas Jefferson Education, but when I attended my first couple of conferences, that was the big light bulb, was that, oh, this isn't my job. This isn't my job. And I had to really dig deep to figure out what that meant and what that looked like in real life. How do I transfer that responsibility onto them? Because you can't just sit down and say, your education's your job, because they're lost. They don't know what that means. They don't know. And it finally came to me, and I want to see if you have this experience too, of the Spirit saying, you get them to pray about it. You get them to ask the question, where am I going in life? What is my mission on the earth? And what do I need to learn this week or this month or this year to get there? What preparation do I need to make? And when I started doing that with the kids, I mean, they're young, their frontal lobes are not connected,
right.
and they're not really as focused on that as we wish they would be. But just teaching them that I mean, if you say it over and over and over, this is your life. Whatever mistakes you make, you have to repent of, you have to fix. I can't fix them for you.
Yeah.
My job is simply to be a mentor. You come to me and you tell me what it is you want to do, and I'll help you make that happen.
Yeah.
But I really can't tell you what your life mission is. That hasn't been revealed to me. It's really not my job. It's not my stewardship. It's yours.
Right.
And I don't know if kids remember me saying that over and over, but that became the culture. And it was really literally whatever you want to do. At one point, Maddie was doing 4 instruments, which was insane. You can't do well at 4 instruments, but she was experimenting with
Exactly.
that concept, and it's okay. It's perfectly okay. And did you have that kind of a experience with Callie a little bit where you came to that moment?
Well, I think I was a slow learner in that realm, and I feel like I've learned from other mentors like yourself regarding that, and I definitely had to let go of that kind of responsibility once she got to a certain age. I
Yeah.
did feel like it was her responsibility, and as I mentioned previously, we would have discussions at the beginning of each year as to what she wanted to do, what she wanted to learn, so that I could help guide her. I could help pull resources in,
Mhm.
and so that she could, pursue what it is that she wanted to do. I'm trying to think of something specifically.
Well, did you have weekly meetings with her, or was it just kind of a general planning session at the beginning, or how
It
did you
was
do
a
this?
it was a general planning session at the beginning of each year, and then there were times that she could be accountable to me in what she was
Yeah.
pursuing, so that she could kind of keep on track. And she wasn't really all that great in keeping track of things, and I think that's one reason, by the time she got into high school, um, there's one line of thought where you kind of keep track of everything that you've done, so you can kind of put a resume together and a transcript, so to speak, for colleges, if you're going to go that route. And she wasn't very good at keeping track of things, and I wasn't going to keep track of it for her. So when push came to shove, when she finally did decide to um that she wanted to, you know, go to a university, she was kind of left with nothing on paper, so to speak, to put a transcript together. So at that point, she had to make a different decision about that. And it didn't hinder, it's not going to hinder her in any way that we didn't do that. But um, you forget how much you learn, or what you're learning, if you don't
Mhm.
write it down. So I do recommend that, but I kind of put that on her shoulder, and made
Yeah.
it her responsibility. So that was a struggle to do. But to answer your question, which I think I've forgotten now because I've
Oh,
been
well, I
rambling
just
on.
wondered it's that, because everybody does reach that moment. If you homeschool for any
Oh, yeah,
length of time, you have to eventually you have to give it to
yeah,
them.
yeah. And it was about that time,
Yeah.
high school time, when
Which
I
is,
had
yeah,
to turn it over
which is
to her.
appropriate. Yeah, which is totally appropriate. I mean, um, the philosophy is as much responsibility and as much freedom as you can give them
Yeah,
is what helps them to really embrace their life and stop fighting with you.
yeah,
Stop fighting
yeah.
with you about things.
They need to take responsibility for their own life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's just stories like this, Janine, that I know are going to help people realize that they can go through this journey. They can put their foot on this path. They can walk this path, that there's lots of ways to accomplish the end result, which is, and I think one of the biggest problems that parents have these days is they don't think, when my child is 18 and they're saying, I'm an adult now and I'm going to live my life, what do you want that to look like? They're not going to be a finished product, right? You
Right.
have to choose, what you think prayerfully, if you're a religious person, or even just analytically. What do
Yes.
you think you want your child to turn out to be? What do you think that they need have accomplished by the time they're 18 for you to say, I've given them enough,
Right.
and they're prepared enough to go out there and be successful.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of what I'm trying. That's like an underwrite, undergirding aspect of what I'm trying to accomplish here too, is just sit down and think about it. What do you want to accomplish here as a parent? You're not going to get it all. You have to pick and choose. So what is it going to be?
Right.
And I just want to show people that there's lots of different ways to go about it. But it does take thought and planning, and to get into the mentorship sort of mentality of you aren't going to be perfect, and you just need to have a plan.
Yeah.
To mentor your kids through this thing called, especially the teenage years. So I really appreciate you taking the time with me. I really do.
You're welcome.
Your story's important to somebody out there, probably many somebodies.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because we as parents we're not going to be able to teach them everything that they need to know. It's just a beginning for them, and
Right.
to choose what's important, what your family's values are, center it around that. And, one thing I want to just throw in there is that the public education system is not going to teach them everything that they know either. So,
right.
To think that
yes
that you are going to fail as a parent, like I had, I literally felt like I was going to somehow undermine my children's future, when really I have been given the power by God to be able to mentor them. That's God has given me that power, and I just wish I would have understood that sooner in my life, because I think a lot of the fears would have been eliminated. I wouldn't have listened to the adversary talk, in my head so much. I would have been able to discern that quicker.
Yeah. I have regrets because I didn't get involved with Commonwealths. And I think that would have been awesome for my kids.
Yeah.
I think they would have really flourished, and especially now that I see how they operate, and I didn't know they existed. I never came into contact with somebody, and I've been kind of struggling with that all year. It's like, why didn't I come into contact with somebody who was doing these? I would have done it, and I realized I did exactly what the Lord wanted me to do, because that person would have come into my life.
Yeah.
That person would have come into my life. As I've talked to like Cher, she's like, yeah, I just ran into this person randomly. And, I'm like, okay, I guess that means I did exactly what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
I guess my kids were supposed to go to community college, and that was the route they were supposed to go.
That's the best you knew how to do at the time.
Yeah.
I did not want to get involved in any groups because it would undermine my freedom as a parent, so to speak. Like,
you're traveling and all the things you wanted to do.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I didn't want it to hinder that, and I didn't want to feel responsible for somebody else's children, and I didn't want to have other additional responsibilities. I didn't want that.
Yeah, right.
So
and I did enjoy the freedom, and we had some families we homeschooled with, and so it all worked out, and they're best friends with those kids, and it's all good. But the Commonwealth is great for my grands, because they need that.
So maybe it was for your grands. Yeah,
I think so.
I think so too. There's lots of resources out there for families, tons of resources, and once you realize how many resources there are, it can be kind of overwhelming. Like that's
when it gets overwhelming. It's like, whoa, I know. Yeah, totally.
I bought way too many things that I did not need.
This last year, me too. Yeah, this last year, as I've talked to people, should I homeschool or how do I do it? And I'm like, well, once you start looking into stuff, you'll get overwhelmed. So
yeah, totally.
Keep it simple. I keep telling, keep it simple.
For sure. I
All
do
right.
have to ask you one question. Did you ever
Okay.
run into situations where you, even within the homeschool community, the Christian homeschool community, you were somewhat ostracized because of
Oh,
your,
definitely.
yeah, I
Yeah, definitely.
definitely had an experience when Karsten, when the charter school was dismantled and he had that 1 year left before he went to college. He wanted to get involved in a speech and debate team that was Christian centered. And we basically had to sign a declaration of our belief and faith in the Godhead being, one,
The Trinity. Yeah.
the Trinity. And, I emailed them back saying, I can agree to all these other things on this declaration, but this is how, like, I believe that these people are, or the Trinity, the Godhead, excuse me, are three distinct individuals, and they would not accept that, and we were not able to join that club, which I really was sad about, because I thought, oh, this is going to be a great experience for Karsten to be able to engage in debate and speech. And I mean, these kids prayed together before their debates, and
Yeah.
they had such a camaraderie together, and their values just seemed to be so in line with ours. But that was very frustrating to feel that
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. I definitely did run into that. And fortunately, I mean, we were able to work through that. We were part of another group just for briefly. And that was kind of a thing. I think it's unfortunate that they have that. I don't know if they're even doing stuff like that anymore, but yeah, I learned quick that that's gonna sometimes be a problem. So, you know,
I mean, it didn't stop us from, doing what we, I mean, it stopped him from doing speech and debate because we didn't really find something that he
yeah,
wanted to do, but he decided to focus on something else. So,
yeah, yeah, smart guy.
anyway,
Anyway, well, you have a wonderful
well,
day.
thank you.
And appreciate you so much, and good luck and everything.
Thanks for all your help. You've been a great mentor to me. So I just want to thank you for your example to me, and
Oh,
just giving me courage and help
well,
keeping.
it helps that it helps that the kids did okay. I could give you courage in return. Yes, it's gonna be fine. I'm pretty sure.
Well, it's their responsibility, right?
It's their job. That's
It's
right.
their
I
job.
did
And
mine.
I think if nothing else, you definitely have integrated that. I mean, you've definitely kind of helped me realize that it's
Yeah.
really their responsibility and take ownership of their own and
It's
take.
hard to let go.
Yeah,
It was
for
hard for
sure.
me too. It's not easy, but it's for the best for everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you. Talk to
Talk
you
to you
later.
later.